It's a Tuesday morning, 1954, somewhere in Ohio. The light is coming in low through the kitchen window, the way it does in October, warm and sideways across the linoleum floor. A woman opens the second drawer of her dresser, the one that sticks a little in the damp. She pulls out a blouse, pale blue, small pearl buttons, and lays it across the bed with both hands, smoothing it flat. She isn't going anywhere special. Bread, eggs, maybe a spool of thread from the dry goods store on 5th. She pins a small brooch near her collar, gold-toned, her mother's. Checks the mirror once. Adjusts. Nods. Her daughter watches from the doorway. And then they leave. For bread, for eggs, for a spool of thread. That image feels far away now. Not old. Far away. Like it belongs to people who understood something we've since forgotten how to say. This isn't a story about fashion. It isn't about formality or etiquette or any of the rigid social codes people have rightly moved away from. It's about something quieter than all of that. A set of habits that used to surround the simple act of leaving the house. Small rituals practiced by ordinary people that most of us have never thought to ask about. Not because they were secret, because they disappeared so gradually that no one noticed they were gone until the people who practiced them were gone too. And somewhere in that disappearance, something else went with them. Something that doesn't have a clean, modern name. It was never about the clothes. That's the thing that takes a while to understand. The pearl buttons, the gloves, the ironed collar, the hat tipped on a sidewalk. These were a language. And what the language said, in all its forms, across all its variations, in every household that practiced it, was something very simple. This matters. Right now. This Tuesday. This errand. This neighbor I'm about to pass. The ordinary day I am walking into is worthy of my preparation. And the front door, the one a woman in Ohio smoothed her blouse in front of it before she opened it, was a threshold. On one side, home. On the other, the shared world. And crossing it was an act. A small, quiet, daily act of arriving. Casual used to be a register. A deliberate loosening of formality in the right context. A Sunday afternoon, a backyard, a lazy holiday morning. It meant something because it existed in contrast to something else. When casual became the default, the permanent, universal baseline, the scale stopped working. Occasion became just another Tuesday. And a Tuesday became just another occurrence to move through, unremarkably, in whatever happened to be within reach on the floor, near the bed. No one made this happen. It simply accumulated. Quietly, gradually, like a tide going out. These habits didn't maintain themselves. They were transmitted. A grandmother showing a granddaughter how a sash should sit. A father explaining to a son, while kneeling over 2 pairs of shoes on newspaper, something he never quite put into words. A mother standing behind her daughter at a mirror, adjusting a collar, stepping back, looking, communicating through the gesture itself all she believed about how a person should move through the world. This is how we do things. This is what we think of ourselves. The transmission was fragile. It lived in gestures, not documents. In Saturday mornings, not lectures. 1 or 2 generations of silence was enough. Department stores in the 1950s had an atmosphere that's nearly impossible to describe to someone who didn't feel it. Hushed. Carpeted. Lightly perfumed from the cosmetics counter near the entrance. The staff dressed impeccably. And so, Mostly did the customers. No sign required. No dress code enforced. Just a quiet, shared understanding. This place has a standard. You honor it by entering well. That sense of public spaces possessing dignity, of spaces that expected something from the people moving through them, has almost entirely dissolved. And as it dissolved, something shifted in the spaces themselves. There's something underneath all of this that's harder to name. When people dressed before going out, when they stood at the mirror and checked once, adjusted once, nodded, they were making a decision. Not about appearance, about participation. There is a difference between drifting through a shared space and entering it deliberately. When you dress with care, you signal, to yourself first, that what is about to happen matters. That the strangers you'll pass on the sidewalk deserve to encounter a version of you that has been considered. It wasn't vanity. It was an orientation toward the world. And it passed, invisibly, from person to person. A kind of mutual agreement, renewed every morning, without anyone ever discussing it. Across working-class neighborhoods, in countless cultures, in homes in every part of this country, there was a set of clothes kept for going to someone else's house as a guest. Not a wedding outfit, not work clothes, visiting clothes. The message stitched quietly into them was one of the most powerful things a person could say to another without speaking. I dressed for you. I thought about coming here. I prepared. We've lost that language entirely. And with it, some small way of saying, without words, that another person's home was worth your consideration before you arrived. As recently as the early 1970s, people dressed to fly. Not in formal wear, in their considered best. A woman in a skirt and a good blouse, a man in a sport coat. Flying was still, to many people, a kind of miracle, something that deserved to be met with something. Look at photographs from airport terminals in the 1960s. The posture, the stillness, the particular way people held themselves in clothes they'd chosen deliberately. They look like people who understood they were participating in something extraordinary, and they dressed accordingly. Sunday nights had a sound. The hiss of a steam iron, the muffled rhythm of it moving across the board. The particular smell of hot cotton, clean and slightly sharp. Clothes pressed for the week ahead. Working-class households, middle-class households, wealthy households where someone else did the ironing. Everyone understood. Wrinkled clothes in public carried a message, and the message wasn't anyone wanted to send. But that Sunday ritual was never really about the wrinkles. It was about standing at the ironing board on a quiet evening, pressing a collar, and deciding, without words, that tomorrow would be met with some degree of intention. That small act of preparation. It has no modern equivalent. Shoes were polished, not before events, as maintenance. A can of kiwi, a brush with bristles worn soft from years of use. A cloth, usually an old undershirt, cut into squares. The whole process smelled of leather and wax, and something faintly mineral. Fathers taught sons on Saturday mornings. Both of them crouched on old newspaper, working in silence mostly. The radio somewhere in the next room. The shoes lasted a decade. Sometimes longer. There was something in that. In the weekly ritual of caring for an object. Until it became familiar worn in, personally shaped. A different relationship with things than the one we have now.
Women who spent their days at home had a specific garment, the house dress. Plain cotton, easy to move in, not meant to be seen beyond the front door. And when company came, unannounced, mid-afternoon, something happened that's entirely vanished now. She'd excuse herself, step into the next room, and change. Not into something formal, just into her regular dress, the one she'd wear to the market. 4 minutes. And when she returned, she offered her guest something that had no name then and has no replacement now. You were worth 4 minutes of my preparation. The guest felt it without understanding it, like warmth from a radiator you don't notice until you've been standing near it a while. Look at photographs from the late 1940s. Not formal portraits, just out. Children on porches, on sidewalks, running an errand on a Saturday morning with their mothers. Small boys in button-front shirts, collars turned down. Little girls in dresses with sashes, white socks folded neatly at the ankle. Mothers dressed their children this way, without explaining why. Because the lesson wasn't in the words. It was in the sash being tied, in the collar being turned, in the small, repeated daily act of being made ready to meet the world. You matter. This day matters. The people you'll see today deserve to see you at your best. No one said it. It was just done. Every morning, before they left. This is the thing that's completely gone. People once dressed specifically for where they were going. Not formally or casually, specifically. A trip to the market called for one thing. A visit to a friend's house called for something else. A trip downtown, even just to mail a letter, called for a little more. No extra money required. Just knowing your wardrobe. Understanding that each place you were entering had its own character. The post office was a public building. It belonged to the community. You dressed accordingly, not because someone enforced it, but because the mutual agreement was simply in the air. That air is gone now, and we barely noticed it leave. Men wore hats outside, almost universally. Until one decade, they didn't. A fedora, a Homburg, a working man's flat cap pulled down against the morning. It finished something, like punctuation at the end of a sentence. Without it, a man stepping outside felt, in some vague, unexamined way, incomplete. And when he passed a woman on the sidewalk, he tipped it. Not as performance, not as courtship, as acknowledgement. I see you. You are a person. We are sharing this street. We don't have a gesture for that anymore. We never replaced it with anything. Walk through a city in 1948 on any weekday afternoon. Watch the women moving past bakery windows, through the cool marble air of bank lobbies, along the woolen crowd of a department store's main floor. Many of them are wearing gloves. White or cream, cotton in the warm months, soft leather when the cold came. 30 cents at the 5 and dime, washed by hand, dried flat on the bathroom shelf overnight. They weren't keeping their hands warm. They were completing something. A woman who wore them described it once, in a letter to her sister, as feeling gathered, like all the loose pieces of the morning had been pulled together and tied off. She wore them to the post office, to the butcher, to nowhere important. And she felt, she wrote, entirely ready. Every household had one. The drawer, the shelf, the section of the closet where the good things were kept. Not the best things, not the formal things. The everyday good things. A blouse with a small embroidered hem,
a skirt that fell just right, a cardigan in a particular shade of green that made her feel, without anyone ever saying so, like herself. These weren't expensive. Many of them were sewn at home or altered from something older. But they were kept separately, handled differently, folded with an extra crease, because they were for going out. And going out, even for nothing, even for Tuesday, meant something. We didn't decide to stop. It happened the way most things happen. Slowly, then all at once. And by the time you notice, the people who could have explained it are already gone. What remains are the photographs. Women on sidewalks in 1952, headed nowhere important, dressed like the day deserved it. Children in cardigans on a Saturday errand. A man on a train platform in a hat he'll tip to a stranger he'll never see again. They weren't trying to tell us anything. They were just living. But they were living as if the world they moved through deserved to be met with something. With intention. With presence. With the 4 minutes it took to smooth a collar in front of a mirror and decide, I'm ready. Your grandmother knew how to do that. Her mother knew it before her. Maybe, somewhere in the memory of a drawer that's stuck in the damp, or a smell of warm cotton on a Sunday evening, or a brooch sitting quietly in a dish on someone's dresser, it's still trying to reach you.
There's another one of these, if you'd like it, about the forgotten rituals of the home itself, the habits inside the house, before the door was ever opened. It's just there, when you're ready.